This video is being brought to you by These Slippers Suck production.
I want to watch the news.
Are you making headway at least?
This is the news.
Schmack-a-ma-gob, it's time for the only news that matters on Kiss Wednesday. And Bruce Kulick, he put up a link to Gene Simmons' interview where Gene takes the blame for Kiss's worst album. And this is what Bruce wrote. He said, Gene Simmons, in a recent interview, shared his negative thoughts on The Elder, as well as Carnival of Souls. I actually love The Elder, he says, which means Bruce Kulick has crappy taste like me. You know that? That's right. I love The Elder too, but we got crappy taste because those people that love The Elder have excellent taste in music and they are obsessed with shiny things. They love shiny things. Anyway, Bruce says, I'll admit Carnival of Souls was dark and gloomy for Kiss, but a very creative release that I enjoy. I will say, I would have mixed it differently, but what's your thoughts on these two Kiss LPs? He is asking. And I will give you my thoughts, and I also want you all to give me your thoughts in the comments below. And I'll give you my thoughts after I read this interview that Gene did. You know, his choice, he said in an interview, is 1981's Music from The Elder. It will come with little surprise to the band's fans. Originally intended as a back-to-basics hard rock album that would undo the fan base damage caused by the disco and pop flirtations of 1979's Dynasty and 1980's Unmasked. The Elder instead transformed into an extremely ill-fated attempt at earning critical acclaim with a high-minded medieval times themed concept album. Gene said, I take the blame for it because it was my idea. I remember telling producer Bob Ezrin that I was writing a movie script and we were making a concept album based on that. And he said, let's do our own Tommy. Yeah, if The Who can do it, why can't we? Well, the straight answer is because we're not The Who. And there are some fans who love the record. To me, it was dishonest. In the same interview, Simmons declared that The Elder wasn't even Kiss's most dishonest album, instead giving the dubious honor to 1997's grunge-influenced Carnival of Souls, the final sessions, while admitting, we were trying to follow a trend instead of just being ourselves. In hindsight, Kiss never really spent enough time in the studio. You know, 1976 Destroyer is okay, but I like 1992's Revenge. But Kiss was always more about the live experience. Simmons won't get much argument about Carnival of Souls from his longtime bandmate, Paul Stanley of Kiss, who declared that he was dead set against doing that kind of an album. In the band's 2001 book, Kiss Behind the Mask, that's actually a great book, he said, I never believed the world needed a second-rate Soundgarden, Metallica, or Alice in Chains. Yet you thought that the world needed a second-rate Bon Jovi, right? I'd rather hear Soundgarden, Metallica, and Alice in Chains following that trend over Bon Jovi any day, man. Come on, it's Bon Phony. But whatever, man. Everybody, you know, y'all are right. Those Crazy Night fans out there, hey, it's all good, man. You dig that stuff? You dig the Bon Phony? That's all right. I don't. But I dig The Elder, man. I love The Elder. Now, it's funny Simmons says this. I guess when I interviewed him, he said Unmasked was the worst Kiss album. And I think the reason he says Elder and Carnival of Souls is because, yeah, he is to blame for those albums, but at the same time, do you honestly think Gene thinks Carnival of Souls and the Elder is worse than Crazy Nights? I'm not saying he doesn't think that, but I'm pretty sure he thinks they're worse than Unmasked, because he told me that was the worst Kiss album, Unmasked. So, yeah, I mean, Paul went along with the Elder, but he was against Carnival of Souls, but there is press here on YouTube. They did an interview somewhere when the album came out where Paul is not saying anything bad, and I know it's part of marketing. Part of marketing is to be a phony baloney, you know? You know you don't like the album, but you got to promote it for money. Therefore, you go and you act like you like the album only so you can say later how you don't like the album. It's just like he said much later, you know, nobody bought Creatures, but everybody bought Lick It Up because we took our makeup off. But Creatures was a much better album. Look, whether you like Creatures more than Lick It Up is not really the question. Do you really think it's much better than Lick It Up? I personally think Lick It Up is better than Creatures, but, you know I used to think Creatures was better, and a lot of you out there think Creatures is better, but when I thought Creatures was better, I still thought Lick It Up was a damn kick-ass album that they never, ever, ever did better. That was the last amazing Kiss album. Every album after Lick It Up was not as good as Lick It Up, and that's just my opinion, you know? I'm not speaking for anybody else, because after all, I like Lick It Up now more than Creatures. And it's funny how Gene brings up, oh, we were chasing trends during Carnival of Souls, and doesn't bring up, you know, hey, how about that disco song you did? Or how about those pop songs? Or, hey, how about the very beginning of Kiss? You know, where you guys were doing the kick-ass rock, you know, some kick-ass rock and roll stuff that other bands were doing at the time. You know, and, you know, Paul Stanley even said earlier in interviews, you know, we would take stuff from Slade and, you know, a couple other of those British invasion bands at the time. So Kiss has always been, you know, chasing trends. Like, the first three albums are kind of like, you know, that hard rock stuff, you know. They didn't invent it, you know, but they fucking made it awesome. And then, you know, the Carpenters and all that stuff was popular, so they released Beth. And then Rod Stewart, Hard Luck Woman. Then Disco, you got, even Love Gun has Christine 16, where Happy Days in the 50s was really popular at that time. And it sounds like a 50s song with the piano stuff. And of course the disco, and then them trying to be, you know, Pink Floyd, The Wall with the Elder. Yeah, and of course the pop of Unmasked. And, yeah, I think at that time, man, Paul pretty much was on board. And then later he realized how messed up it is. And, you know, for sure, Paul Stanley does not like looking back at, you know, the Crazy Nights album or how he dressed during Asylum or, you know, the Rock Hard video or Let's Put the X in Sex. 80s Kiss was really cringe, man. I mean, cringe as fuck. And I remember back then when it was happening, I thought, God damn, look at these guys. These guys look like fools with all that glittery shit, especially Gene, but I'm sorry, all four of them, they looked horrible. All four of them looked like they just walked out of an exploding paint factory. They took what Motley Crue did with Theater of Pain and just exploded it to the 10th degree, where in Carnival of Souls, they weren't wearing flannels and Doc Martens and all that stuff. They were more obvious, way more obvious at chasing trends on Asylum. And then, You know, Crazy Nights. But I will add, Asylum's a damn fine album. But, you know, look-wise, what they were going for, and yeah, it did have some songs that was as disturbing as the outfits, I think. I know a lot of you love those songs, but to me, it's all about King of the Mountain, any way you slice it. Love's a Deadly Weapon, Secretly Cruel, and All Night. Yeah, even that cheesy-ass song. But anyway, I love The Elder. I love Carnival of Souls. Carnival of Souls has some weak moments, though. But man, do I love Masters and Slaves, Jungle, Hate, Rain, It Never Goes Away. You know, it's funny because it's funny looking back on that album, because when I look back at Crazy Nights and shit like that, it's like, yeah, Gene didn't care during that era. But yet, I like Gene's songs more than Paul's songs during that era. Now, fast forward to Carnival of Souls, Gene was all into Carnival of Souls. Paul wasn't, yet I like more of Paul's songs on Carnival of Souls. Gene, I think, only liked one song. Hate, that's it. I didn't like Childhood End. That's one of the worst Kiss songs I ever heard. And all the other ones, In My Head and stuff like that, no thank you. Hate was the only one. But Paul had a bunch of killer shit. Just goes to show, man. Whatever Kiss member doesn't care at the moment writes the better songs. Anyway, what do you all think, man? Do you like or hate Elder or Carnival of Souls? Unmasked? Leave it all in the comments below and what you feel about Gene. All I know is that I know. I just know by interviewing Gene. He doesn't like Unmasked. He just doesn't. But he takes the blame for these two because he is responsible for those two. But anyway, thank you so much for watching The Only News That Matters. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't. Ring that little notification bell. And please check. If you are subscribed to my channel, check to see if you're still subscribed. Because people are getting unsubscribed for no reason, and that blows. So, and please like the video, because it's good for the YouTube algorithms. So stay frosty, listen to Black Sabbath, and smack 'em a gob.
Farewell and adieu to you fair Spanish ladies. Farewell and adieu, you ladies of Spain. For we've received orders for to sail back to Boston. And so never more shall we see you again.
This video was brought to you by These Slippers Suck Production.
I'm out of here.